Hello everybody and welcome to Friday's Reads. It's the first Friday's Reads on my channel for 2017. So welcome all old and new subscribers. So for those that you don't know, Friday's Reads is where I showcase short story collections. I recently last year started rereading and getting a lot more interested in short story collections, and you know, sometimes I think they're an underestimated I was going to say breed, but they're very much underrated, underestimated in my opinion. I think we need to give them a bit of a shout out. So that's what I've decided to do. So this Friday we're going to be featuring a story from the Stone Mattress. This is by Margaret Attwood. As you can see, typical Margaret Attwood sense of humour type cover. So what I'm going to read today is actually the title story called Stone Mattress, and hopefully this will give you a little bit of a taste. I think this is fabulous. I've read this, I'm giving it a 5-star. Real fabulous collection of well-written stories, great characters, and yeah, well worth getting this. This is a copy from the library. At the onset, Verner had not intended to kill anyone. What she had in mind was a vacation, pure and simple. Take a breather, do some inner accounting, shed worn skin. The Arctic suits her. There's something inherently calming in the vast cool sweeps of ice and rock, and sea and sky, undisturbed by cities and highways and trees and the other distractions that clutter up the landscape to the south. Among the clutter she includes other people. And by other people she means men. She's had enough of men for a while. She's made it in her memo to renounce flirtations and any consequences that might result from them. She doesn't need the cash, not anymore. She's not extravagant or greedy, she tells herself. All she ever wanted was to be protected by layer upon layer of kind, soft, insulating money, so that nobody and nothing could get close enough to harm her. Surely she has at last achieved this modest goal. But old habits die hard, and it's not long before she's casting an appraising eye over her fleece-clad fellow travellers, dithering with their wheelie bags in the lobby of the First Night Airport Hotel. See, she's not lasted long, has she, without being interested. Passing over the women, she ear tags the male members of the flock. Some have females attached to them, and she eliminates these on principle. Why work harder than you need to? Prying a spouse loose can be arduous, and she discovered via her first husband, discarded wives stick like burrs. It's the solitaries who interest her, the lurkers at the fringes. Some of these are too old for her purposes. She avoids eye contact with them. The ones who cherish the belief that there's life in the old dog yet, these are her game. Not that she'll do anything about it, she tells herself, but there's nothing wrong with a little warm-up practice. If only to demonstrate to herself that she can still knock one off if she wishes to. For that evening's meet and greet she chooses her cream-coloured pullover, perching the magnetic Northwood name tag just slightly too low on her left breast. Thanks to aquasize and core strength training, she's still in excellent shape for her age, or indeed for any age, at least when fully clothed and buttressed with carefully fitted underwiring. She don't want to chance a deck chair in a bikini. Superficial puckering has set in despite her best efforts, which is one reason for selecting the Arctic over, say, the Caribbean. Her face is what it is, and certainly the best that money can buy at this stage, with a little bronzer and pale eyeshadow, mascara and glimmer powder and low lighting. She can finesse 10 years. Though much is taken, much remains, she murmurs to her image in the mirror. Her third husband had been a serial quotation freak with a special penchant for Tennyson. Come into the garden, Maud, he'd been in the habit of saying just before bedtime. It had driven her mad at the time. She adds a dab of cologne, an understated scent, floral, nostalgic. Then she blots it off, leaving a mere whiff. It's a mistake to overdo it. Though elderly noses aren't as keen as they may once have been, it's best to allow for allergies. A sneezing man is not an attractive man. She makes her entrance slightly late, smiling a detached but cheerful smile. It doesn't do for an unaccompanied woman to appear too eager. Accepts a glass of the passable white wine they're doling out, and drifts among the assembled nibblers and sippers. The men will be retired professionals, doctors, lawyers, engineers, stockbrokers, interested in Arctic exploration, polar bears, archaeology, birds, Inuit crafts, perhaps even Vikings or plant life or geology. Magnetic northward attracts serious punters, with an earnest bunch of experts laid on to herd them around and lecture to them. She's investigated the 2 other outfits that tour the region, but neither appeals. One features excessive hiking and attracts the under 50s, not her target market. And the other goes in for sing-songs and dressing up in silly outfits. So she's stuck with Magnetic Northward, which offers the comfort of familiarity. She's travelled with this company once before, after the death of her 3rd husband 5 years ago, and so she knows pretty much what to expect. Not sure she'll find anybody thrilling with that lot either, really. There's a lot of sportswear in the room, much beige among the men. Many plaid shirts, vests with multiple pockets. She notes the name tags: a Fred, a Dan, a Rick, a Norm, a Bob, another Bob, then another. There are a lot of Bobs on this trip. Several appear to be flying solo. Bob. A name once of heavy significance to her, though surely she rid herself of that load of luggage by now. She selects one of the thinner but still substantial Bobs, glides close to him, raises her eyelids and lowers them again. He peers down at her chest. Verner, he says, that's a lovely name. Old-fashioned, she says, from the Latin word for spring. When everything springs alive again. That line, so filled with promises of phallic renewal, that had been effective in helping to secure her 2nd husband. To her 3rd husband she'd said that her mother had been influenced by the 18th century Scottish poet James Thomson and his vernal breezes, which was a preposterous but enjoyable lie. She had in fact been named after a lumpy bun-faced dead aunt. As for her mother, she'd been a strict Presbyterian, with a mouth like a vice grip, who despised poetry and was unlikely to have been influenced by anything softer than a granite wall. During the preliminary stages of netting her 4th husband, who she'd flagged as a kink addict, Verner had gone even further. She told him she'd been named for the Rite of Spring, a highly sexual ballet that ended with torture and human sacrifice. He'd laughed, but he'd also wriggled, a sure sign of the hook going in. Now she says, and you're Bob. It's taken her years to perfect the small breather intake, a certified knee melter. Yes, Bob says, Bob Gorham, he adds with a diffidence. He surely intends to be charming. Verner smiles widely to disguise her shock. She finds herself flushing with a combination of rage and an almost reckless mirth. She looks him full in the face. Yes, underneath the thinning hair and the wrinkles and the obviously whitened and possibly implanted teeth, it's the same Bob. The Bob of 50-odd years before. Mr. Heartthrob, Mr. Senior Football Star, Mr. Astounding Catch from the rich, Cadillac driving end of town, where the mining company big shops lived. Mr. Shit, with his looming bully's posture and his lopsided joker's smile. How amusing to everyone. Back then, not only everyone in school for everyone, but in an armpit of a town they'd known to a millimetre, who drank and who didn't, who was no better than she should be, and how much change you kept in your back pocket. How amazing that Golden Boy Bob had singled out insignificant Verner for the Snow Queen's Palace winter formal. Pretty Verner, 3 years younger, studious, grade skipping, innocent Verner, tolerated but not included, clawing her way towards a scholarship as her ticket out of town. Gullible Verner, who'd managed, and she believed she was in love. Or who was in love? When it came to love, wasn't believing the same as the real thing? Such beliefs drain your strength and cloud your vision. She's never allowed herself to be skewered in that tiger trap again. What had they danced to that night? Rock Around the Clock, Hearts Made of Stone, The Great Pretender. Bob had steered Verner around the edges of the gym, holding her squashed up against his carnation buttonhole, for the unskilled, awkward Verner of those days had never been to a dance before and was no match for Bob's strenuous and flamboyant moves. For meek Verner, life was church and studies and household chores, and her weekend job clerking in the drugstore with her grim-faced mother regulating every move. No dates, those wouldn't have been allowed. Not that she'd been asked on any, but her mother had permitted her to go to a well-supervised high school dance with Bob Gorham. For wasn't he a shining light from a respectable family? She'd even allowed herself a touch of smug gloating, silent though it had been, holding her head up after the decampment of Verner's father had been a full-time job and had given her a very stiff neck. From this distance Verner could understand it. So out the door went Verner, starry-eyed with hero worship, wobbling on her first high heels. She was courteously inserted into Bob's shiny red convertible with the treacherous Mickey of Rye already lurking in the glove compartment, where she sat bolt upright, almost catatonic with shyness, smelling of Prel shampoo and Jergens lotion, wrapped in her mother's mothbally out-of-date rabbit stole and an ice blue tulle skirt, dress that looked as cheap as it was. Cheap and disposable, use and toss, that was what Bob had thought about her from the very first. Now Bob grins a little. He looks pleased with himself. Maybe he thinks Verner is blushing with desire, but he doesn't recognise her. He really doesn't. How many fucking Verners can he have met in his life? The Verner of the day before had died, and a different Verner had solidified in her place, stunted, twisted, mangled. It was Bob who taught her that only the strong can win, that weakness should be mercilessly exploited. It was Bob who turned her into... Why not say the word? Why not say the word? It was Bob who had turned her into a murderer. So I'm going to leave it there. I've had to skip quite a bit because it's quite a long short story, but I think you get a gist of the writing. I think you get a gist of the atmosphere. I think, you can't wait to get to the end to find out whether she kills him or whatever happens. So, yeah, take a look at this. It's wonderful. So again, it's The Stone Mattress by Margaret Attwood, featuring in today's Friday Reads. And hope you have a good weekend and see you again next week. Bye for now.